Angela here with Enthusem. I'm just going to walk you through how the integration setup works with SharpSpring and Enthusem. So just high level, we're going to set up an Enthusem mailer template. Then we're going to connect the SharpSpring and Enthusem accounts, and that means we need to configure the users, map a mail date and code fields, and set up update fields, so what happens to the lead in SharpSpring when they respond to an Enthusem mailer. And then to actually trigger the mailer, we need to create a workflow and add a trigger. So here's how that's going to work. In the user's Enthusem account, we'll set up what we call mailer templates, and basically that's a combination of a video attachment. So when somebody goes online and enters their code, what do they see? A lot of times it's a video. It could simply be a landing page. So this is just an example of what one of those looks like right here. So when somebody goes online and enters their code, this is what they would see in this case. A design for the front of the mailer. So the design can be a static image, or it can be a dynamic image as well. So we can pull in content such as, as an example here, we could pull in the recipient's logo as a repeating logo on the wrapping paper here. I didn't do that in this case, this is just a flat one, but that's what the types of things we could do. We could also pull their profile image into a little tag that goes onto the present as an example. All that's done variably and automatically. And then a message for the inside of the card. This is just a very, very simple basic one. The next step is to connect the two accounts. So if you go to the integrations page in Enthusem and SharpSpring, we need to go get a couple of things from SharpSpring. So if we just go over here to the API settings, we'll get everything that we need. So just copy over the account ID and the secret key and hit validate. And you'll see down here things change. So now our accounts are hooked up. The first thing that we do is we configure the SharpSpring user and map it to an Enthusem user. So on the left here, my SharpSpring user is Angela Medler. On the right hand side, we're just going to specify which Enthusem user that maps to. So this is important for when we send out the cards, so we have the correct signature on the cards and that kind of thing. It also kind of shows on the Enthusem side who would get an alert email. You don't have to configure all of the SharpSpring users. For example, I have a developer account in SharpSpring. I wouldn't want that one to send a card. The next step here is we can configure a couple of lead fields. So when we mail an Enthusem card, and Enthusem has the ability to push back the mail date of the Enthusem card and the pickup code or the access code. So what a lot of our clients use this information for is if they send out a card and let's say it's scheduled to mail on November 10th, post office takes 3 to 4 business days, say, they would probably set up an email to go out maybe a week after the mail date that says, hey, just wanted to check to see if you got the card I sent you. If you didn't get it in the mail just yet or it didn't hit your desk, you can go to this page and enter this code to view the content that I wanted to share with you. What that does is it kind of reinforces the mailer. It also gives them the ability, in case for some reason the mailer didn't hit their desk or they just didn't have a chance to look at it yet, to go online and look at that access code with the information they wanted to see, which then of course triggers the notification back over to SharpSpring. In order to link up the mail dates, and you don't have to do this, but I would recommend doing it, you just need to create a date field in SharpSpring. I called mine Enthusem Mailer Send Date. And then you also just need to create a field in SharpSpring as well. I called ours Pickup Code. And then down here, this is where we identify what's going to happen to the lead when they respond to an Enthusem mailer. We have the ability to update a pick list field. So in my case, I'm going to use one that I created called Lead Stage. And the SharpSpring API doesn't yet have the ability to pull in the values of that pick list field. So what we did is we set up where the user has to come in here and just enter the values. So the way that this works here is when somebody goes online and enters their code, if the lead is in one of these values, we will then update it to the value selected here. And this will make a little bit more sense once I start filling it in. So I'm going to use the field that I called Lead Stage. So I just need to come and enter these fields over here. Okay, so what I'm saying now is if my lead is in the status of mail card 1, mail card 2, mail card 3, or mailer sent. When they respond, then update the status to Enthusem responded. So I'm going to hit save and enable, and that's going to link up the integration. So now we just have to go over to SharpSpring, and we have to set up a workflow. So I'm going to use this workflow here called Send Enthusem Mailer. And we're going to do post back lead info to the URL, and that URL is going to come from Enthusem. So we're going to go back over to the mailer templates that we were looking at before, that thank you example. And there's a link here for integration info. It's going to show the user any of the integrations that are already set up for their account. So this is my testing account, so you'll see I have a couple of the integrations already set up. And there's some brief instructions here on how this works. So I'm just going to copy this URL, and I'm going to paste that over here. And then we're going to save it. So now we have a workflow created. I'm just going to go create a very simple task. Trigger Enthusem card. We're going to say add the trigger when the lead has the field. Lead stage equals Enthusem mail card 1. So when we do that, so when the lead has the lead stage mail card 1, we're going to have it trigger the existing workflow, send Enthusem mailer. So this is how you identify on the SharpSpring side between all of the different campaigns, all the different types of users you might have going, getting Enthusem cards. You can set triggers for all different types of business rules, and then this URL will tell Enthusem which mailer they're supposed to receive. So this lead is going to get the card that had that thank you message on it. So now if we go back over to a contact, and the contact has to have a couple things. First, it needs to be owned by a user that's mapped in the integration that we set up earlier on. The lead also has to have a mailing address, so an address, city, state, and zip, and a first and last name. That's the only information that's absolutely required in order to send an Enthusem mailer, but we also pass over, if it's available, the lead's website URL, their phone number, their email address, company name, job title. We use the website URL and the email address. If the mailer template has a profile picture in it, website screenshot, or a company logo, we'll use that information. So I'm just going to add this to the workflow just so we can see it in action. Send Enthusem test mailer. And then if we go back over to Enthusem, we will see that in my mailing history. But if I click through here, we'll see John Test 8 is all scheduled to mail. We can take a look at a proof of the mailer. The return address is that of the sender. The recipient's info is here. The image that we selected for the front is here. And then also the cards are print ready, so one of the panels is flipped around. But here's the message that we had, and then the information for the visit Enthusem codes and enter this access code. So we can go do that now. I'll show you how the pickup side works. This page would be branded for the client, by the way, so who's ever sending the card, their branding would also go on this page, as well as the next page. Here's the video for this recipient. Now if we go back to SharpSpring, the lead stage should get updated to Enthusem responded. So now that obviously can trigger any other series of workflows from SharpSpring that you would want. So it could trigger a notification back to the sender, it can trigger a series of emails, it could trigger another Enthusem card if you wanted to. So that is how the integration works. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask.